Hi everyone, in today's video we are going to be making a crochet eye mask. This is actually a pattern from the Crochet Society Box 7, which is going way back because we're now on box 31. If you have not heard of Crochet Society, it's my monthly subscription box that gets delivered straight to you. It's full of luxury yarn, a crochet hook and a stitch marker exclusive to the theme of the box. You will also get additional crochet goodies, as well as a mini magazine which has at least 3 patterns and other articles as well. So it's a gorgeous box. If you want to check it out, I'll leave a link in the description box below with all of the details where you can find all of the monthly plans and different things like that. But this is the one, as I say, designed for box 7. And I really like this. It's actually really easy to make. It's made of 2 panels, so we're going to have 2 panels, and then we're also going to be doing some cross stitch as well, just to give a bit of interest. Now the yarn that I used for this was exclusive to the Crochet Society box. It was a Bella Coco yarn. However, I'll leave some alternatives and the material details in the description box, so go and check that out, or I'll leave some on the screen here for you as well. Now I will point out that yes, I sound a bit croaky right now, but I promise you in the video it's not going to sound like that. So let's go ahead and get started with the video.
For the eye mask, we're going to make 2 panels, the front panel and the back panel. The front panel is going to be using colour B and the back panel is going to be using colour A. So first of all, we're going to start by making the front panel, and we're going to be using colour B, which is rosy, this one here. So whatever we do for this section, you will also complete with colour B. So you're going to go ahead and make your slip knot, and you can do this in whichever method you prefer. Go ahead and insert your crochet hook. And we're going to start off by chaining 5. So yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, and yarn over, pull through. And then one more for 5. And for this pattern, we're going to be using a double crochet, which is a UK term. In the US, this is known as single crochet. For row 1, we're going to start off in the 2nd chain from the hook, so not the one that's on the hook. This is the 1st and the 2nd. You're going to insert your hook and yarn over and pull through. You'll have 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through both of those loops on the hook, and you're going to do this in each of the chains along the foundation chain. So that's 2, 3, and 4. We're now going to move on to row 2, so you want to chain 1 and turn your work. This chain 1 does not class as a stitch here or throughout the pattern. This is simply just to get up to the height of the stitches. We're going to start off by doing 2 double crochets into the first stitch, so this very first stitch here, 1, and into the same stitch, 2. We're then going to do 1 double crochet into the next 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and then we're going to finish with 2 double crochets into the last stitch, 1 and 2. For row 3, you want to chain 1 and turn, and we're going to do 2 double crochets into that very first stitch, 1 and 2, followed by 4 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then 2 double crochets into the last stitch, 1 and 2. So we now have 8 stitches in total. For row 4, you want to chain 1 and turn the work. You're going to do 2 double crochets into the first stitch, 1 and 2, followed by 6 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then 2 double crochets into that very last stitch. This last stitch might be a little bit tricky in the rows, so just take your time. 1 and 2. At the end of row 4 you will have 10 stitches. Now going to move on to row 5. You're going to chain 1 and turn your work. We'll do 2 double crochets into the very first stitch, so just make sure that you are working into the very first stitch and not missing that one there. So 2 double crochets into that first stitch, 1 and 2, followed by 8 double crochets and then 2 double crochets into the last stitch. So go ahead, pause the video, do those 8 double crochets and meet me back to finish off this row. So once you've done those 8 double crochets, you're then going to do those 2 double crochets into the very last stitch to complete row 5. So that's 1 and 2. You're going to go ahead and chain 1 and turn your work. And this time we're not going to do 2 stitches into the first stitch, we're just going to do 1 double crochet into the next 11 stitches. So go ahead, pause the video, work those 11 double crochets and meet me back in just a moment. So after you've done those 11 double crochets, you're then going to go ahead and do 2 double crochets into that very last stitch. That's 1 and 2. And that completes row 6. We'll then go ahead and do row 7. So chain 1 and turn the work. We'll do 2 double crochets into the first stitch. 1 and 2. And then 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way to the end of the row. So you'll have 14 stitches in this row. Pause the video, work those stitches and meet me back in just a moment. For row 8, you're going to chain 1 and turn, as we have been doing. You're going to do 2 double crochets into that very first stitch, 1 and 2. And then you're going to work 12 double crochets. So go ahead, pause the video, work those 12 double crochets and meet me back to finish off row 8. At the end of row 8, after you've done those 12 stitches, you should have 1 stitch remaining, which you're going to do 2 double crochets into. And then for row 8, you'll have 16 stitches in total. For rows 9 to 17, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work and do 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way across. So remember, you will have 16 stitches in each row. I would highly recommend that you make a note of which row that you are on. So go ahead, pause the video, work rows 9 to 17 with 1 double crochet in each stitch and meet me back in just a moment. So I've now built my rows 9 to 17. We're moving on to row 18. Going to chain 1 and turn the work. We're going to do 1 double crochet into the first 14 stitches. So go ahead and pause the video, work those 14 double crochets and meet me back in just a moment. So after you've done those 14 stitches, we're then going to do a double crochet 2 together. So we're starting to decrease and do a bit more shape work along this edge. So what we want to do is go ahead and insert the hook and then grab the yarn and pull it through. You'll have 2 loops on the hook. Rather than finishing off this double crochet, we're going to go into the next stitch and then yarn over, pull through. You'll have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops on the hook, and that is double crochet 2 together. So this now takes our stitches down to 15 stitches. We're going to go ahead and chain 1 and turn our work, and this is row 19. We're going to start off with 1 double crochet 2 together. So into that first stitch, yarn over and pull through, 2 loops on the hook. Into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on the hook, and then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on the hook. So that creates 1 stitch. And you're simply going to do 1 double crochet all the way to the end of the row, and for this row you'll have 14 stitches in total. So pause the video, work those doubles all the way to the end and meet me back for row 20. So for row 20 you want to chain 1 and turn your work. We're going to do 12 double crochets before we get to the end of the row. So go ahead, pause the video, work those 12 double crochets and meet me back in just a moment. So once you've got to the end of the row, we're going to do a double crochet 2 together. So just as you have done before, we're going to work over the next 2 stitches and crochet them together to make 1 stitch. So at the end of this row you'll have 13 stitches. For row 21 you're going to chain 1 and turn the work, and then you're going to start off with a double crochet 2 together, and then you're going to go ahead and do 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way to the end of the row. So go ahead, pause the video, work those stitches to the end and meet me back in just a moment. So at the end of row 21 you have 12 stitches in total. You're going to chain 1 and turn your work. For rows 22 to 26 you're going to do 1 double crochet into each stitch. So remember, you've got 12 double crochets in each row. I would highly suggest that you make a note of which row that you're on. So go ahead, pause the video, work rows 22 to 26 with 1 double crochet in each stitch, and then meet me back once you're ready. So I've now completed rows 22 to 26. I'm about to move on to row 27. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn. We're going to do 2 double crochets into the first stitch. So 1 and 2, and then 1 double crochet into each of the stitches all the way along. So we're going to increase this row to 13 stitches in total. So pause the video, work those stitches and meet me back in just a moment. So now we'll move on to row 28. We're going to go ahead and chain 1 and turn, and we're going to do 1 double crochet into each of the first 12 stitches. So go ahead, pause the video, work those 12 stitches and meet me back in just a moment. So at the end of this row you're going to do 2 double crochets into the last stitch. So it's 1 and 2. And for this row you'll finish with 14 stitches in total. So now on to row 29, chain 1 and turn. We're going to start off by doing 2 double crochets into that very first stitch, 1 and 2, and then 1 double crochet into each of the remaining stitches. In this row you will have 15 stitches in total. So go ahead, pause the video, work your way to the end of this row and meet me back in just a moment. Now on to row 30, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work, and you're going to do 1 double crochet into the first 14 stitches. So go ahead, pause the video, work those 14 stitches and meet me back to finish off this row. So at the end of this row you're going to do 2 double crochets into that very last stitch. And then row 30 will consist of 16 stitches in total. We're going to chain 1 and turn our work, and for rows 31 to 39 you're simply going to do 1 double crochet into each stitch. So remember, we have 16 stitches in each row. I highly recommend that you write down which row that you are on. So go ahead, pause the video, work rows 31 to 39 and then meet me back once you're ready. So we're now on to row 40. You're going to go ahead and chain 1 and turn your work, and you're going to do a double crochet 2 together. So working across those first 2 stitches to combine them as one. We're then going to do 1 double crochet into the next 12 stitches. So go ahead, pause the video, work those 12 stitches and meet me back in just a moment. So now we're at the end of this row. We're going to finish off by doing a double crochet 2 together over those last 2 stitches. and that completes row 40 where you'll have 14 stitches. We're going to chain 1 and turn our work, and for row 41 we're going to start off with a double crochet 2 together, and then 1 double crochet into the next 12 stitches, which will take you all the way to the end of the row. So go ahead, do those stitches, and then meet me back for row 42. For row 42 we're going to chain 1 and turn our work, and we're going to start off by doing 11 double crochets. So 1 double crochet into the first 11 stitches. Pause the video and meet me back in just a moment. After those 11 stitches you'll find that you have 2 stitches remaining, and we're going to double crochet 2 together to finish off that row. We're going to chain 1 and turn our work. For row 43 we're going to double crochet 2 together, and then we're going to do 8 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then we're going to do 1 double crochet 2 together into the last 2 stitches. Going to chain 1 and turn our work. For row 44 we'll double crochet 2 together, followed by 6 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, finishing the row with a double crochet 2 together. Chain 1 and turn. Row 45 we're going to double crochet 2 together, followed by 4 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and double crochet 2 together. Chain 1 and turn, and for row 46 going to double crochet 2 together, 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, and then double crochet 2 together. So we've now completed the actual panel. We're going to add a border to this panel now, and we're going to use the same colour. You want to chain 1, and we're going to double crochet evenly all around the edge of the mask. So for example, as we're working down here, we're going to be working into the posts of the stitches, and then as we're working along the edges, we're going to be working into the tops of the stitches. So you can see this gap here, this is the post of the stitch. We have another post. We're going to do a double crochet into each of the posts of the stitches all the way around. And you just want to try and keep this as even as possible. So working into the post again, and you're going to continue this all the way around. So go ahead, pause the video, work 1 double crochet into each of the posts of the stitch or into the tops of the stitches. You might want to place a stitch marker into your very first stitch if you feel that you're going to miss where that's going to be. But pause the video, work all the way around, and meet me back in just a moment. Okay, so once you've worked all the way around, you want to go ahead and slip stitch into your very first stitch, chain 1 and snip off your yarn. And there we have the front panel. So you want to go ahead and do exactly the same thing for your back panel, and then meet me back and I'll show you how to do the cross stitch on the front of your mask. Okay, so when it comes to doing the cross stitch on your work, you want to be being mindful of the gaps in between. So if you take a look at the gaps, you want to imagine that each of these holes forms a square like so. So just like you would with cross stitch, we're working in those squares. So you want to take a look at the diagram in your book, and we're going to start off by working 3 stitches down. So 1, 2, 3, and then we're working from row 38 to begin with. So I'm going to start from the top of the heart downwards. Of course, you can change out whichever design if you want to, but I'm just going to show the basic principles of doing this this cross stitch. So you're going to bring it through on the bottom part of the square, and then you're going to bring your yarn to the top half of the square. So going from the bottom left to the top right, or it would be vice versa if you're watching the left-handed version. You want to bring your needle from the top to the bottom hole like so, and that would form 1/2 of the cross. We're going to do 3 of these in total. So this is the second and then the third. Please, when you're using your thread, don't make your thread too long because it just makes it quite awkward to work with. So at this point we've done the 3 parts of the heart. Now you can either choose to go backwards at this point, however I do like to just continue and doing 1 row in total, so I'm just going to pull that back through there just for now, and skip 3 squares. So this would be 1 square, 2 square, and then we'd skip 3 squares if I pull through here. And I'm going to go ahead and do 1, 2, and 3. So at this point I've worked all the way across, doing 1 pass almost of the stitches. We're now going to make these into the actual cross stitches. So going back the other way, we have 1, 2, and then I'm going to go into the top here, but then come all the way across to the bottom part of this stitch and do 1, 2, and 3. If I'm looking at my diagram now, the next square is actually going to come outwards 1. So this would be the stitch directly underneath what we're working on. I'm going to come backwards and start doing the next stitch, so it actually brings the heart shape out. I'm going to do 5 of these in total. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th one. After that 5th one, I miss a stitch, so I'm coming back over this way and then doing another 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Working back the opposite way in order to create our X's. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is where we skip a stitch, so I'm going to go into the top of that X and move over, missing out the next square, and then finish off my 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. At this point I would go downwards to form my next row of cross stitches, and the next few rows are pretty easy to do. You just go straight across with your cross stitches. So go ahead, pause the video, work your 2 hearts on one side and the other side, and then meet me back once you're ready. Okay, so I have now embroidered on those 2 hearts, and I have also made my back panel. So what we want to do now is add the ribbon to the project. So you're going to take 2 pieces of ribbon about 35 centimeters in length, and we're actually going to sew these to the back panel. So you want to have the wrong side of the back panel facing you, so the right side away, the wrong side facing you, because this is the inside, and we're going to sew this to the inside of the back panel. Now what I would suggest is that you fold over the end of your ribbon, and then you can go ahead and place this on the back panel of your work like so. So you want to have the smooth side of the ribbon also facing you. You can pin this into place. So I have just threaded up an embroidery needle with some white thread, and what I'm going to do is first of all just fold that over, and what I like to do is just go through with my thread and just bring that knot through like so, and then just go round again, and it just kind of secures that into place. And then I'm just going to go around the other side. Just don't pull too tight when you're doing this. This is just something that I do, it's not completely necessary. I just like to know that that fold is sat in place nicely. It's much harder to sew on camera than it is to actually crochet. So we go back through again just to hold that in place. So now that I know that's kind of a little bit secure, I'm then going to go ahead and place it on to the work. Like so. And like I say, you can actually pin this into place if you want to, but you want to catch some of the yarn and then also come back up through the ribbon. Catch the yarn and then back through the ribbon. You don't want to go through the yarn so much so that you're actually going out the other side. You just want to catch those top few fibres. So through the yarn and then through the ribbon. You really want to make sure that this is nice and secure, because ultimately you're going to be pulling on this when you tie your face mask on. So just make sure that you are doing as many stitches as you can and just working round nice and slowly through the yarn and then through the ribbon. So once you get to this section here, I'm actually going to go through the top of the ribbon and catch some of the yarn underneath and do a back stitch. So I'm going to catch some of the yarn underneath and then move a little bit further forward, just because I really want to make sure that this is nice and secure. Once you're happy that that is on nice and securely, you can go ahead and tie off this thread and then just disguise the end. So I'm just going to go underneath the yarn or underneath the ribbon, bring that through and then cut off my end. There's probably a lot of sewers out there cringing at my sewing techniques, but I don't claim to be an excellent sewer. So you want to do exactly the same thing on the opposite side, and then we're going to go ahead and attach the front panel to the back panel to finish off our mask. So we're now ready to start working the front and the back panel together, and what you want to do is have the right sides facing outwards, and we're simply going to join the front panel to the back panel with the corresponding stitches. So you want to go ahead and insert your hook into the stitch from the front and then the stitch from the back. From the border that we created, you can go ahead and attach your yarn in whichever method you prefer, and we're just going to double crochet all the way around. So I'm just going to go ahead, bring that through and just chain one to begin, do a double crochet into that same stitch, and then a double crochet into every stitch and the corresponding stitch of the back panel all the way around. You want to make sure that you have the front of your work facing you when you do this, because it will make your stitches look a lot neater. So when it actually comes to this section, which is where you have your ribbon, all you're going to do is just work into the front panel only when you come to that section, like so. So just working into those few stitches as you work around the ribbon. And then once you get to the other side, you can go ahead, line up your stitches again and continue to work in the front and the back panel. So you want to do this all the way around, making sure that you are working evenly and into the corresponding stitches. And then don't forget on the other side just to work into the front panel when it comes to the ribbon section. So go ahead, work that all the way around and meet me back once you're ready. Okay, so once you've worked your way all the way around, you're going to go ahead and slip stitch into the very first stitch. You can go ahead and chain one and snip off your yarn. Then all you have to do is sew in your ends. So go ahead, thread up your darning needle, and I'm going to work my way across the back panel. Going to go into the work. I'm going to work back the opposite way. And then finally I'm going to go one more way. And then snip off my yarn. And then the yarn is nice and neatly tucked away inside of your mask.
So I would absolutely love to see your variations of this mask. I would love to see what colours you chose, and if you changed up the design, please make sure that you're tagging me on Instagram and Facebook. And if you're thinking about joining Crochet Society but you're not quite sure, you might want to check out this video.